the temerity to try to get to the bottom of what actually happened that day by joining the January 6th committee. But now we're actually starting to see some Republican senators offer some qualified pushback.
I think the RNC's out of its lane, quite honestly.
I think all of us up here want to talk about forward, not backward.
We've got issues that we should be focusing on besides censuring two members of Congress because they have a different opinion.
They said in the resolution they wanted Republicans to be unified. That was not a unifying action.
Anything that my party does that comes across as being stupid is not going to help us.
Now, each of those Republican senators showed some willingness to distance themselves from what is now the official position of their own party. That itself is actually a remarkable thing these days, and it's a message being embraced by the top Senate Republican. Moments after leaving his weekly meeting with Republican senators today, Mitch McConnell made his feelings clear to reporters.
Let me give you my view of what happened January the 6th. And we're here. We saw what happened. It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was. The issue is whether or not the RNC should be sort of singling out members of our party who may have different views from the majority. That's not the job of the RNC.
Well, a person who spoke to McConnell tells the Washington Post tonight that the Republican leader is, quote, frustrated that the party was focused on the only liability we have when he believes Republicans are otherwise well positioned to win in the November midterms. But not all Republicans agree that the party's official downplaying of January 6th is, in fact, a political liability. An RNC spokeswoman tells the Post, outside of the D.C. bubble, our grassroots are very supportive of the decision to hold Cheney and Kinzinger accountable. That sentiment was echoed by Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, who's made it clear that he will never apologize for objecting to Biden's 2020 win. He told reporters today, quote, listen, whatever you think about the RNC vote, it reflects the view of most Republican voters. Joining us now to discuss this is former RNC Chairman Michael Steele. Michael, it is good to see you, my friend. I need you for a fact check tonight, because on one side, we're kind of excited that a few Republican senators said the most obvious thing they could say, right? That you can't call what happened on January 6th legitimate protest. Right. Nobody's going too far out on a limb. In fact, it was interesting to see that Mitch McConnell probably went further than most, but they're not going too far. This is the most obvious thing you can say as a Republican, that was an insurrection.
Yeah. And, you know, look, I think a lot of folks sitting here going, thank you for acknowledging what the rest of the country acknowledged a year ago. And I get it. I understand a lot of the politics and everything, but this is beyond the politics, Ali. And I think while a lot of us appreciate Mitch and other Republican senators now coming out and stating the obvious, you know, how much damage has been done? How much further have we allowed this rot to continue inside the party? If these comments, if this acknowledgement had been made over the past 7 or 8 months, do you have a moment like you had with the rest of the clip showing, you know, the craziness of Josh Hawley and others talking about, well, our base, you know, this is what we want. Well, our base wouldn't be in this space if the leadership acknowledged the facts and the truth at the very beginning.
So let me ask you,
after the election had done that.
So what's the trigger then for McConnell to do this? Because that is about as forceful as he's been about the issue. There is a real debate. Maybe there's not a ton of debate going on in the Republican Party, but there is one about whether embracing the January 6th rioters is a liability or an advantage come November. Someone, maybe it's Mitch McConnell himself, but someone has decided it's a liability.
It's a liability, and it probably see it reflected in their internal pollings. Look, Mitch is nothing if not calculating. Mitch is nothing if not dialed in. And so while Josh Hawley thinks that, yeah, this is where the Republican base is, it's a very small portion of the Republican base that buys into what the RNC did relative to the potential loss come this November. Why is that important? Because yeah, you still need Republicans to turn out and vote. You still need them to support your candidates, and you don't want to continue to add fuel to that fire. So that internal conversation in McConnell's world is focused on how we navigate this space, clear the lane of the debris of January 6th, and stay focused on talking about Biden, talking about the economy, et cetera. This takes away from that in a major way. And to the broader question about, this is the only thing Republicans has a problem going into November was talking about this. No, the problems are a lot bigger than just this one issue as well. So there are a lot of other pieces that come together that McConnell is looking at that now puts him in a position to stand very clearly in opposition to Donald Trump and the Trump wing of the party.
So interesting that you mentioned the polling, that McConnell might be relying on this. I want to show you a new Pew Research poll that was taken between January 10th and 17th, asking Americans whether they think Trump bears a lot of responsibility for January 6th. 1 year ago, right after January 6th, 52% of Americans thought that Trump bore a lot of responsibility for it. I would have thought, with everything we've learned, that number would have gone up. But according to Pew, it's gone down. Fewer Americans think Donald Trump bears a lot of responsibility for January 6th. What do you make of a poll like this?
That's where the leadership comes in. Look, you beat the drum, you create the confusion, you depress the narrative. Yeah, people tune out. They then begin to see everything through a political lens. And this is the risk, Ali, that I think the Biden administration, but more importantly, the January 6th Commission has to deal with, is how do they pull this out of that purely political space and get the American people to focus on that what we had happen was real, it was threatening to our democracy, and now people need to account for it. And that's the part that over the next few months is going to be the challenge. That's why those numbers show that at 43% versus 52% a year ago, because of the lack of emphasis of just how important this really is.
Why is the RNC out in front of this thing? I mean, you are a former RNC chairman. Why did they get themselves into a position where they'd be perhaps out of sync and we'd be having this discussion tonight?
Oh, this is all what Trump wanted. This is all about what Trump wanted. In fact, Dave Bossie, the national committee man from my great state of Maryland, God bless us, goes, traipsing down to Mar-a-Lago. Everybody says, oh, well, there was no conversations between Trump and Bossie. Yeah, Trump is sitting there still orchestrating and dictating the terms. Bossie is one of his acolytes. This has Trump's fingerprints all over it. The chairwoman is a wholly owned subsidiary of Trump operations at this point. And so the reality of it is when you have those two inside the building, along with all of the Trump acolytes who've been elected chairman and national committee men and women over the past 4 or 5 years, this is the pull that the party is beginning to see internally. Trust me, the McConnells of the world and others are going to feel that pull, which is why some senators are retiring, members are retiring, et cetera, because they don't want to get caught in that any longer. And it's going to be a real tug of war between now and November, given also, Ali, the fact that you have Republicans like myself and others who are going to make sure, damn sure, that this pull and this tug happens, because we want this party to move off of stupid and back into a position where it can govern the country, not run it into the ground by upending its democracy.
Michael, I'm always much smarter for listening to you. Thank you, my friend, for joining us tonight. We always appreciate your time. Former RNC Chairman Michael Steele. Much more to get to tonight. Stay with us.